Howdy. My name is Nonat, and welcome to the third and final part of my deep dive into the Oracle class for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. If you have not already, I highly recommend checking out that video, which is the first part where I go over the Oracle's mystery, curses, and revelation spells, as well as the first 4 mysteries. If you've seen that one, make sure you've seen part 2, where I go over the other 4 mysteries and their curses and revelation spells. This video, this third and final part in the review, will be covering the starting proficiencies, class features, and class feats. This has been a heck of an undertaking to review this class, but what's nice is from here on, it's all smooth sailing downhill. The rest of this class is going to be easy, and the rest of the classes in the game are nowhere near as complicated. Until the Summoner comes out and I have to cover all of their Eidolons. But that's next year. For right now, let's get on with the starting proficiencies. Starting off, the Oracle's main key ability score is Charisma, giving them a +2 boost, and they start with a solid 8+ Constitution hit points. That's more than a Sorcerer or a Wizard, which is pretty nice. They're trained in Perception, trained in Fortitude and Reflex save, and an expert in Will saves, so only expert in one of the 4 main saving throws and Perception. All Oracles are trained in Religion, are trained in 1 or 2 skills depending on their mystery, as well as 3 plus their Intelligence modifier of extra skills. They begin only trained in simple weapons and unarmed attacks, as well as light armor and unarmored defense. The Oracle, for those who aren't aware, is a divine spellcaster. However, unlike a cleric who is a prepared spellcaster, the Oracle is a spontaneous spellcaster, similar to the Bard and the Sorcerer, where they know far fewer total spells, but they can cast them without memorizing them specifically each day. The spells they can cast come from their spell repertoire, and they begin with 2 first-level spells as well as 5 cantrips. These spells all come, of course, from the Divine spell list. Similar to all other spontaneous spellcasters, whenever they get a new spell slot, they get a new spell of that level. So at level 2, when they get a 3rd level 1 spell, they can learn a new level 1 spell. When they reach level 3 and get 2nd level spells, they get to pick 2 new 2nd level spells. Now, something important to keep in mind, since this is the first spontaneous caster I'm covering in these deep dives, I'm not going to go too deep into detail in the future. In fact, I have some guides to those from a long time ago if you're interested in like the Sorcerer and the Bard. But whenever you get a new spell slot of a higher level, unlike a Cleric, Druid, or Wizard of those prepared spellcasters, where they do not need to memorize, say, Magic Missile level 3, they can just heighten the Magic Missile spell. Spontaneous spellcasters cannot do that. If you want to cast Magic Missile at 3rd level, when you reach level 5 and get 3rd level spells, you need to spend one of your new spells on Magic Missile level 3. If you took Magic Missile at 1st level and you reach level 5, you can't just upcast it at 3rd level. You need to learn it as a separate spell. This is one of the big advantages of prepared spellcasters over spontaneous. Like I said, we are skipping the entire mystery section, which is like half of the Oracle, so if you have not checked them out, boom, links there again to the Revelation spell videos. Now looking at the level-by-level class features of the Oracle, starting at 2nd level, they do get to take class feats. The Oracle is of course a spellcaster, which means they do not get a 1st level class feat. Also, like all other classes, they get a skill feat every even level. 3rd level is a general feat. Here we can see the Oracle's spell progression, which is almost exactly the same as a Sorcerer, I believe, which is just 3 spells per spell level. You get a new spell level every odd level, like everyone else. It's a pretty standard-looking spell distribution. At 3rd level, they get signature spells, just like Sorcerers and Bards, where you pick a specific spell of each level, and that single spell can be heightened at will. So if you pick Magic Missile as your level 1 signature spell, you can simply upcast it at 3rd level once you have 3rd level spell slots. But you can only do these with your signature spells. Skill increases at 3rd level, pretty standard stuff. 5th level ability boosts, 5th level ancestry feats, and at 7th level the Oracle becomes an expert spellcaster, increasing their proficiency with spell attack rolls and DCs. At that same level, they also increase their will saves to master already. So they're still trained in both fortitude and reflex, but they are already masters with will saves and automatically crit succeed their normal successes. 9th level sees their fortitude save finally increasing to expert, and 11th level sees their perception increasing to expert. They also unlock their major curse at 11th level. Up to this point, the Oracle could not go beyond the moderate stage of their curse without becoming overwhelmed by it. Once they have reached 11th level, rather than being overwhelmed, they access a whole new powerful stage of their curse. Though, just like before, should the Oracle be already at the major stage of their curse and they use another revelation spell, they will become overwhelmed. A very nice upgrade still from level 11's major curse is you don't gain a new focus spell right away, but you do get an additional focus point, and already at level 11, the Oracle can recover 2 focus points while refocusing, which is incredible. That is usually a fairly high level feat you have to take, whereas they just get it as a class feature. Very solid. Their proficiency with weapons also increases to expert at 11th level. Woo. At 13th level, their reflex saves finally increase to expert, and their proficiency rank in light armor and unarmored defense both increase to expert. They also gain weapon specialization, which for the most part is probably pretty meaningless to the Oracle unless you happen to be the Ancestor or Battle Mystery. Or someone who just happens to have maybe a fighter dedication. Level 15, they become an expert at spellcasting. Spell attack rolls and spell DC proficiency increases to Master. Level 17 is such a power spike for the Oracle, as they get access to their Extreme Curse. They can now go beyond the major curse benefit, which is the final benefit listed on all of the curses, and reach their Extreme Curse state. All mysteries share the exact same effect for the Extreme Curse. While afflicted by the Extreme Curse, you become doomed 2, which means if you go down, you begin at dying 3. Incredibly dangerous. However, the reward is very powerful. Once per 10 minutes, you can re-roll a dice. This can be an attack roll, a skill check, a perception check, or a saving throw, and once every 10 minutes, you can ignore a dice result and roll again. However, you are forced to take the second result. Should you cast another revelation spell while under the Extreme Curse, you are, once again, overwhelmed. If you become overwhelmed in this way, your doomed condition does not go down even if you refocused, meaning you are doomed 2 until your next daily preparations. This also is another completely passive upgrade that the Oracle can now refocus to gain 3 focus points back instead of 1. This means that every single encounter, the Oracle can cast 3 different focus spells, or 3 of the same focus spells, doesn't really matter, every single encounter, and then spend 10 minutes and get all of them back. This is so powerful, granted at a very high level. At level 17, they become legendary in will saves and are no longer able to critically fail them. Should they critically fail, it is instead a normal failure. Additionally, the normal failure might as well be a success, because if you normal fail a will save against a damaging effect, you now take half damage. So effectively, should you fail or critically fail, you succeed. Should you succeed or critically succeed, you critically succeed. This is really, really strong. Level 19, they reach legendary proficiency in spellcasting. Level 19, the Oracle gets a 10th level spell slot, as well as 2 different 10th level divine spells. The big caveat here is that no ability or feature that grants you additional spell slots affects Oracular Clarity's 10th level spell slots, the only exception being the Oracular Providence feat. We already talked about all of this! Jumping into the Oracle feats, oh my word, I like how talking about everything the class gets from level 1 to 20 is going to take less time than talking about half of their level 1 options. Glean Lore effectively turns your religion skill into the lore skill. For one action, you can use religion to gain information. The GM will adjust the DC accordingly, depending on how pertinent the information is and how related it is to your chosen mystery. So if you have the Mystery of Flames and you're tracking down a fire elemental, well, the DC will probably be lower because you are so in tune with flame. Should you critically succeed, you understand the information you're being given by the divine and gain a useful clue pertinent to your situation. Should you normal succeed, you will get 1 piece of truthful information and 1 piece of falsified information, and it's up to you to figure out which one is correct. Should you fail, you are given misinformation. And should you critically fail, you are given 2 pieces of misinformation or non-helpful clues. It doesn't say that this is a secret check, but it is sort of implied by the fact that you can be given misinformation. I suppose religion checks in general should be secret checks, but usually it says under a specific action if the check should be secret. But I do believe this one should be secret so that the player as well does not know whether the information they gleaned is true or not. Reach spell and widen spell. Classic metamagic available to all spellcasters. Cantrip expansion is great for spontaneous casters. You just get 2 additional cantrips. Divine Aegis is kind of interesting. As a reaction, if you are about to roll for a saving throw, you can give yourself +1 to all saving throws against magical effects that are not divine. So primal, arcane, and occult magics. However, until the start of your next turn, along with the +1 bonus to those saving throws, you get a -1 penalty to all divine spell effect saving throws. Domain Acumen. You get another focus spell from one of the domains of your mystery, which is also a curse-bound revelation spell. This also already gives you a 3rd focus point, which as early as level 2, the Oracle can have 3 focus points. Very nice. Bespell Weapon. It functions the exact same way as all other classes who get this. Whenever you cast a non-cantrip spell, you get 1d6 bonus damage on your held weapon until the end of that current turn. The type of damage depends on the school of magic the spell was. Divine Access is okay. You can choose one deity associated with one of the domains of your mystery, so they both have to share that domain, and you get to pick 3 cleric spells associated with that deity. Now these spells are added to your spell list, not your spell repertoire, which means if you want to cast these spells, you need to use downtime to swap out the spells currently in your repertoire with the new ones you get from this feat. This does not give you access to more total spells in your repertoire. Vision of Weakness grants you Vision of Weakness. Vision of Weakness is a 1-action focus spell, and interestingly enough, while it's not a revelation spell, it is still curse-bound, which means casting this will progress your curse to the next stage. When you cast Vision of Weakness, you are instantly granted any weaknesses the creature may have, as well as which of its 3 saving throws are the lowest. This is honestly the most meta focus spell I've ever seen, or really spell in general. You just get to learn straight stats about this thing. If it has a weakness to fire, you get to learn that, and if its lowest saving throw is fortitude, you get to learn that as well. You don't get to know the exact number, but you do get to know which one is lowest. Additionally, because of this, you get a +2 status bonus to your next attack roll before the end of the current turn. So this is an amazing combo, especially if you, say, take the Oracle Dedication, and you just get this focus spell. If you are maybe a fighter, if you're a fighter and you have this focus spell, you can cast Vision of Weakness and get a +2 status bonus to your next attack roll. Now this is 1 action. You can cast this, and then, for another action, you can cast True Strike. So if you're a fighter with this focus spell, and you cast Vision of Weakness, True Strike, you're attacking with +2 with your full bonus on top of True Strike's advantage. That is almost guaranteed going to be a critical hit, so long as your dice don't hate you. The only downside is that the target is immune to Vision of Weakness for 1 full day. 6th level's Advanced Revelation gets you your Advanced Revelation spell as well as an additional focus point if you don't already have 3 focus points. This means if you're a Flames Oracle, Whirling Flames. Level 6 is amazing. Also, if you're the Tempest Oracle, you get Thunderburst. This is an amazing feat, and honestly, most mysteries will want to take this feat. There is no other better option. Spiritual Sense is really, really specific. I could never see myself taking it over Advanced Revelation, but should you be interested, you basically get a 6th sense to discover things that don't belong to the material plane, specifically divine in nature. While searching or seeking, and on any kind of automatic exploration search checks, you can notice things like ethereal creatures inside of solid objects. Additionally, while exploring, the GM will roll a secret check for you that automatically has you search for a bunch of different things. Celestials, fiends, monitors, spirits, creatures from the ethereal plane, as well as any kind of haunt. So really, anything related to spooky ghosts or anything divine in nature, either holy or unholy, you get a free secret check that the GM will roll for you if there are any around. Steady spellcasting. Should you be casting a spell that you have to concentrate on, and your concentration would be broken, you get a DC 15 flat check, and if you succeed, the spell is not lost. Debilitating Dichotomy gives you the focus spell of the same name. This is a really cool focus spell, guys. For 2 actions and a focus point, you target one creature within 30 feet. Both it and you make will saving throws. A basic will saving throw against 9d6 mental damage. Should they critically fail, they take the double damage. They take 18d6 and become stunned 1. Now this also applies to you, but no matter what, you treat your saving throw as 1 better than you rolled. And at this point, you have such a solid will save that against your own DC, you should be fine. The chance of you normal succeeding this and then being automatically bumped up to a critical success and taking no damage is really high. This is an amazing focus spell, and the amount of potential burst damage on a single target, so fantastic. The damage even heightens by 3d6 per spell level, and it's a focus spell, so it's automatically heightened, so even at level 9, 1 level later, this is dealing 12d6. I love this spell. Read Disaster. You spend 10 minutes and gain the effects of the Augury spell, which normally gives you a response of weal, woe, or nothing. Basically, is what's about to happen to us good, bad, or nothing. However, because it's Read Disaster, the only results for you are woe or nothing. So the GM will, even if something really great's about to happen to you, the GM will just say, nothing. Additionally, if you're legendary in religion, it only takes 1 minute to do this. And there's no limit on how often you can do this, so it's very vague information, but it's still information nonetheless. Oracular Warning is interesting and a lot of words for an overall pretty simple effect. As a free action, if you're about to roll initiative, you can warn one ally and give them advantage on their initiative. So they roll 2 d20s and take the higher result. In return, you have to roll with disadvantage. You roll 2 d20s for your initiative and take the lower result. Honestly, especially if you're playing full support as like a healer, this is amazing. As a healer, you want to go later in the initiative, just in case somebody gets hurt and you can already do something on the first round. So being able to give your ally, namely like your fighter, your barbarian, a higher chance of going first in combat, even if that bumps you down the initiative tracker, that's still not a bad thing. This is a great feat, y'all. Additionally, once you're legendary in religion, you can give this to 2 allies. It also goes on to say that should you find some way to negate the disadvantage on your initiative, it would also disable the advantage your allies get. The 2 are related, so if something stops either of them, the other effect is stopped as well. Quicken Casting level 10 is always really good no matter what kind of spellcaster you are. Should you be casting a cantrip or a spell that is at least 2 levels lower than your highest level spell, you can reduce the total number of actions by 1. Now this cannot turn a 1-action spell into a free action, but it can turn a 2-action into a 1-action, or a 3-action into a 2-action. However, you can only do this once per day. Surging Might is really solid for getting around tough, finicky enemies. By spending 1 action, you power up your next spell, and if your next action on that turn is to cast a spell, that spell ignores a target's resistances to chaotic, evil, good, lawful, negative, and positive damage. This applies to all of the spell's damage too, so should they be afflicted with something like persistent damage, even the recurring persistent damage ignores their resistance. Keep in mind, this ignores resistances, not immunities. Domain Fluency can only be taken if you already have a Domain Focus spell, which you do start with a free one at level 1. You gain the Advanced Domain spell from a domain from which you already have the initial Domain spell. This is, of course, I'm gonna keep that in, that was pun intentional. This is of course considered a Revelation spell with the Curse-bound trait. And if you somehow don't already have 3 focus points, which I think it would be impossible. Yep, I just checked to be sure, and even oracles cannot have more than 3 focus points. So I don't know why this gives you a focus point. You couldn't even take this through a dedication, as the highest feat level you can take through a dedication is level 10. So, Greater Revelation. You gain the Greater Revelation spell from your mystery, as well as another focus point, which you would already have 3 at this point, almost guaranteed, I think. What's important to note is you do not need to take Advanced Revelation to take Greater Revelation. You only need the initial Revelation spell, so keep that in mind if you don't like the Advanced Revelation spell for your mystery. You can ignore it. Magic Sense is pretty good. You have a passive first level detect magic spell on anything you can see. Additionally, should you ever take the Seek action, that upgrades to a 3rd level detect magic spell as long as you are seeking. You can also turn this sense off and on at will. Forestall Curse is a pretty interesting idea. For 1 action, if your next action is to cast a revelation spell, your curse doesn't progress. You do take a 1 action penalty for this, but if you're in a situation, especially as something like a life oracle where the next stage could murder you, this isn't a bad thing to have on hand. Mysterious Repertoire is kinda cool, and I like it. You can have 1 spell in your repertoire that is not from the divine tradition. This means you can have an arcane, primal, or occult spell in your spell repertoire. Now, you're going to have to learn it in some way in-game, as you cannot learn this kind of spell through leveling up, unless your GM is nice and just lets you. This spell is still considered a divine spell when you cast it, but otherwise functions exactly as normal. Diverse Mystery is really confusing. It's simple in theory, but in effect has a lot to keep track of. You can take any initial or advanced revelation spell from any other mystery, which is amazing, because if you watched my previous 2 videos, the advanced revelation spells are usually the best ones anyway. The greater ones are usually a little more niche. Now here's the caveat. When you cast that specific revelation spell, you take on the minor benefits of that curse. You get the minor effects of that one. I think I said benefits. I meant effects because they're not benefits. No minor effect is a benefit. So if you're a Flames Oracle and you take the Lifelink focus spell from the Life Oracle and you cast Lifelink, you get the minor detriment of the life curse effects on you, and you have to keep track of that, and if you ever go back and cast a flame spell, that one increases like normal. The life curse doesn't affect your flame curse at all, and you have to keep track of all these curses! Foiled again! I don't know which curses would work in this way, but the only way around this effect is if the curse's minor penalty would contradict your main curse in some way. Should this be the case, you cannot cast that revelation spell. I don't know which 2 would contradict each other. I'm sure there's one combo out there, and that's probably why they wrote this. But if it would contradict your main curse, you cannot cast that spell. Potentia's spell is kinda weird, I'll be honest. You use this is metamagic, so if your following action after using this is to cast a spell, any target that uses a reaction in response to your spell gets a -2 to attack rolls and skill checks as part of that reaction. So if they have a reaction that allows them to make an acrobatics check to avoid it, I don't know any off the top of my head, they would get a -2 to that acrobatics check. Additionally, any target affected by the spell becomes fascinated until the start of your next turn. Blaze of Revelation is the single coolest, most powerful feat I've ever read in Pathfinder 2nd edition. Your mind and body can, for a short time, withstand the devastation of overdrawing your curse. When you would become overwhelmed, and this is level 18, so this is after reaching Extreme and casting another focus spell beyond Extreme. When you would become overwhelmed, you can forestall and delay the effects of being overwhelmed for 1 minute. Additionally, during this minute, on every one of your turns, you can cast any of your focus spells without spending a focus point. This is strictly revelation spells granted by your mystery. Your domain revelation spells and revelation spells granted from other mysteries by other feats do not count. Only your primary mystery's revelation spells can be cast in this way. And you can only cast 1 per turn. Even if you have 3 actions, you can't cast 3 single action focus spells. But that still means you can cast your strongest focus spell every single turn without spending a focus point. At the end of the minute, any durations of effects from your focus spells immediately end, and you need to make a Fortitude saving throw. With a DC 40, should you critically succeed, nothing happens. Should you somehow roll a 50 Fortitude save, nothing happens and you're fine. Should you normal succeed, you are drained 2 permanently until your next daily preparations. This cannot be removed in any way. Should you fail, you are drained 4, and this cannot be removed until your next daily preparations. And keep in mind, you lose your drain value times your level in hit points. So if you're level 18 and you fail your saving throw, you just took 72 damage. Should you critically fail this Fortitude saving throw, and that means you only rolled a 30, you die. Your curse overtakes you, and you die. This is the coolest feat in the game. I'm not even a big fan of oracles as a whole. This is one of the most amazing feats I've ever read. The biggest risk for some of the biggest rewards. Divine Effusion is pretty simple. Twice per day, you can cast a spell even if you have no more spell slots of that level. The 2 times you do this must be from separate levels as well. Definitely not as crazy powerful as Blaze of Revelation, but still pretty good. 2 additional spells of 8th and 9th level every day? That's really pretty good. Mystery Conduit is kinda lame, I'll be honest, albeit a really good way to push for max curse. When you cast a spell of 5th level or lower with no duration, rather than use a spell slot, you can simply progress your curse. This is honestly pretty good, as this gives you, effectively, a ton more 5th level spell slots. Especially if you keep refocusing, this means you can refocus for 10 minutes and, quote-unquote, gain 4 spell slots back. That's not bad, although for level 20, it might be a bit much. Oracular Providence, like we talked about way back when, is the only way to get a second 10th level spell slot. Paradoxical Mystery is probably the worst level 20 feat I've read in a while. Effectively, during your daily preparations, you can pick any initial or advanced domain-focused spell from the cleric domains in the core rulebook, or any initial or advanced revelation spell from any of the oracle mysteries, and cast them as focus spells that day. The spell functions as a curse-bound revelation spell and progresses your curse like normal. That's it. If you could take the greater revelation spells from the other mysteries, this might be a bit cooler, but since other oracles get these spells at level 6, and cleric domain spells, for the most part, aren't too incredible, this is kind of a letdown for level 20. Honestly, Blaze of Revelation is the ultimate oracle feat, and it is just the best and terrifying. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our 3-part deep dive into Paizo's oracle class for Pathfinder 2e. Holy cow, for those of you who watched all 3 videos, congratulations. Go get yourself a sody pop down at the bar. You deserve it. You deserve the reward. This was such a long feat. Holy cow. I'm excited to move on. Later this week, y'all are going to get your Goblin Ancestry video. Next week, we're going to move on to the Cleric, which will be so much simpler than the Oracle. So thank you all so much for watching. I want to give a huge shout out to my patrons right over there. I'm not going to move back into the center of the frame because otherwise I get my face cut off by my patrons. And also, just once more, I want to say, the flames consume me.